If the McDuck family wants an adventure, we'll give them their last.
Greetings, viewers! Tonight here, bringing you another review, and today I'm going to cover the series finale of Ducktales 2017. A lot has happened since I last talked about this series. After Bradford was exposed as the director of Fowl, Scrooge and Mrs. Beakley, who are both agents of Shush, think to protect both their home and Scrooge's bin, and while Scrooge was right in thinking that his bin would be attacked, it all turns out to have been a diversion so that Fowl agents could steal the missing mysteries that the family had discovered throughout Season 3. The Harp of Nirvana, which can tell if someone's being truthful or dishonest, an entire Fountain of Youth, Steelbeak managed to steal the Solego circuit from Darkwing, and a genie the family met is captured by the Phantom Blot. The only real victories the family has had is securing the Sora Swanson team, which can channel the wielders in their strength and transform them into their true self, and the blessed bagpipes of Clan McDuck, which can grant life to that which has none and vice versa. These are facts will be important in the finale. Kind of. Before getting to the actual review, I feel we should talk about Fowl. The criminal organization debuted in the 1990s and was in direct opposition against Shush. They posed a global danger in their quest to conquer the world, and their agents came into conflict with Darkwing Duck on multiple occasions. In the DuckTales reboot, Bradford Buzzard was revealed to receive an accountant job as a favor founder Ludwig von Drake had made to Bradford's grandmother. However, Bradford felt that hunting down supervillains and fighting them caused more harm than good, and that Shush should just take over the world, with the full intention of protecting it. Ludwig shut this down, and this resulted in Bradford turning to Black Heron, who had been recently captured. Years later, Scrooge, with Del and Donald, sought out the Papyrus of Binding, an artifact that would result in anything written upon it to become a reality. After a scuffle that resulted in Bradford being discovered by Scrooge, the Buzzard wrote his escape and self-fixed it that Scrooge would have no memory of Bradford's involvement. When Scrooge saw that Del and Donald had been captured by Black Heron, Scrooge wrote down that only his rightful heir could find the papyrus again. And for years after, the papyrus had been lost. After this, Bradford was recommended by Mrs. Beakley to be Scrooge's CEO, unaware this would mean that Scrooge would have employed one of his worst enemies. Bradford simply chose to watch Scrooge in the shadows, but after the return of Magica Dispel and a nearly successful invasion from the Moonlanders, Bradford decided that Scrooge and his family's adventuring resulted in nothing but danger, and that Fowl would actively have to put a stop to it. The majority of Fowl's personnel makes up of ducks in jumpsuits and egg-shaped helmets called the Eggheads. The Eggheads are mainly just nameless mooks, with the exception of one named Pepper who, despite being a villain, is a very friendly and positive character. Possibly the most recognized Fowl agent was a rooster named Steelbeak, a parody of the James Bond villain Jaws. Steelbeak was basically a cocky villain, and it was mainly his ego that caused him to be outsmarted and overpowered by Darkwing and his allies. Here, Steelbeak is sort of a dim-witted brute, and was originally locked up in St. Canard for cockfighting. Like Black Heron and Taurus Bulba, Steelbeak embraces being a villain and revels in supervillainy. Falcon in the 2017 series via Black Heron, an old foe of Bentina Beakley, equipped with a robotic arm that can fire energy blasts, a skilled martial artist, and gifted with a genius intellect. Heron is quite possibly Fowl's most dangerous agent. Introduced in some old Disney comics, the Phantom Blot was a master criminal, but was more of a Mickey Mouse villain than an enemy to the Duck family, though he did appear in an episode of Ducktales. The reboot completely reinvents Blot as someone whose village was destroyed by Magica Dispel, and repeatedly hunted her down and challenged her. He doesn't just despise Magica, but all magic in general, and wears a gauntlet that absorbs magic and fires what I can only describe as anti-magic. I really didn't care for the episode where he was the main villain, but it did result in him learning to control her magic and the magic of regaining hers. This too will be important. In the original DuckTales, Gandredy was basically just the girlfriend of Finn and Crackshell, but in the reboot, Gander is a scientific genius who really only joined up with Fowl because they were the only people willing to fund her experiments, and she intended to quit the organization as soon as possible. Unfortunately, Bradford discovered that she'd been working behind his back and had her locked away. Also, I always thought she might be some sort of hawk due to her beak, but according to the wiki, she's a chicken. Well, that's at least a step up from her species just being a generic bird. Originally an independent villain, the sky pirate Don Canage became an agent of Fowl after securing a fragment of the Stone of what was a magical artifact capable of combining two creatures together. Like when he joined forces with Comgold, I can only assume Don Canage joined up with Fowl to get back at Dewey for making a fool of him. The only agent I really can't figure out a legit reason for being a part of this group would be John Rockerduck. He was more of an antagonist towards a younger Scrooge and Goldie O'Gilt than an actual villain. And yes, there is a difference. I can't imagine a real solid reason that Rockerduck would join Fowl, especially since he seemingly froze himself before the organization was even a thing. And his hulking manservant Jeeves at this point is a Frankenstein-type zombie. Somehow. Oh boy. Looking at the script now, this is going to be another 22-page thing again, isn't it? So it's Webby's birthday, and every member of the Duck family, including Fenton and Drake Mallard, and Webby's friends are present to celebrate with her at the family restaurant Funzo's, which was revealed to be built over Fowl's base in the episode 00 Duck. Thanks to the combination of Launchpad's lingering memories of the base's layout when he and Dewey discovered it, and Launchpad's habit of talking in his sleep, Dewey was able to come up with a plan to finally confront Fowl and recruit as many people as possible. The group splits into two teams, but while Dewey's group discovers that Fowl has abandoned their base, Dewey's group discovers two girls in tubes. The girls, who are introduced as May and June, are taken to McDuck Manor, where Gyro and Nita scan them and discover that they are genetic clones of Webby. This was sort of set up in the split sword of Swanson where Black Heron revealed that she'd managed to get a feather during a fight with the McDucks. But people assumed that it was one of Scrooge's feathers, and it seemed like it was at the time. Overlooked plot hole? Maybe. Everyone knew Fowl had intentions of cloning, but the theory was that it would be a clone of Scrooge that Bradford could control, and at this point in the episode, it's a complete mystery why Fowl would want to create clones of Mrs. Beakley's granddaughter. Convinced they're dangerous due to being created by Fowl, Mrs. Beakley locks up the two girls in the same room she locked up the boys in the first episode. Wanting to know more about the girls, Webby sneaks in and learns that they were deemed failed experiments by Bradford, so they don't know anything about themselves more than anyone else. Seeing May and June as sisters, Webby shows them the board of people she considers family. Unable to understand that family isn't just limited to the people you share blood with, June literally tries to sever the thread that connects Webby to her friends Lena and Violet. And Lena doesn't really care for that. This not only leaves Webby feeling torn between her friends and sisters, but now also questioning who she is, after May pointed out that Webby doesn't really know anything about herself, including who her parents were. Convinced that Val is planning something, Beakley chooses to storm their second base on her own. Scrooge, however, tries to get her to let him help, due to their friendship and having been just partners so long ago. At first, it seems that Beakley is accepting Scrooge's offer, but she really just knocks him out before leaving. So I didn't address this earlier, but during Lovey's party, it's revealed that Donald and Daisy will be going away on his houseboat to sail the world for a year. And doesn't really take the news all that well, having been separated from her brother while she was stranded on the moon for years. I can sort of understand. It isn't said how long Donald will be gone for, and it is shown she has a bit of an heroic streak, maintaining a comfort zone where her family is involved. But we can't presume that Donald is going away forever, and he comforts Stella, telling her she has Scrooge back in her life and her sons to go on adventures with, while Donald wants to go on an adventure of his own with his new girlfriend. I really enjoy the relationship between these two, since it's clear they do care about each other, and Della really does want what's best for her brother and for him to be happy. Despite what some others might think, I feel this show did Donald rather well. In the original Donald Duck shorts, he's sort of a bud monkey and occasional antagonist prone to temper tantrums. This show, however, has characterized him as someone who cares greatly about his family and is willing to go up against anyone if they threaten his uncle, nephews, or sister, no matter how clearly outmatched he is. Now, for those of you who may have thought I was just getting sidetracked from the main plot, not really. When Della was worrying about Donald going off on his own with Daisy, she offers him the Source Constantine, and when they leave the room, June sneaks into the houseboat through an open window and steals it, confirming Huey's suspicions that the clones were evil when he sees her do this. May also manages to get hold of the blessed bagpipes. off screen. Okay, might have been nice to see where she found them, but whatever. Turns out Bradford told the girls that if they brought the two remaining treasures and Webby them, then the buzzard would tell them why they were created. They're discovered by Webby and try to convince her to willingly come with them. Webby of course refuses, which results in a fight between her and June. When Huey sees that the treasures and Webby are being taken away by Fowl, he stows away on their airship. In a twist that made me had to go back a bit to make sure I had heard correctly, the plane lands at Fowl's new base, the Lost Library of Alexandria, and it turns out that Webby was able to overpower June and swap clothes with her, letting Huey know when he reveals himself. With Webby, Huey, and the two treasures now gone, Bruce sees the team of Gyro, May the Headless Man-Horse, Lil and Donald, Launchpad, Gizmo Duck, and Darkwing Duck on a rescue mission. It isn't just going to be the adults though. Several of the kids want to come along for their own reasons. Cousin knows Drake and Fenton are offering to help her find her grandfather. Lena, Vita, and Boyd are friends with Webby and Dewey, and Louie and Dewey are generous enough to know that if Scrooge doesn't willingly let them come along, then the kids are just going to sneak on the plane anyway. But how are they going to find out where Fowl is?
Found Huey using the tracking app on my phone.
When they're just over the base, Scrooge leaves Dewey in charge of the kids, while the adults infiltrate the base to rescue Webby and Huey. But pretty much everyone splits up as soon as they touch down, leaving Scrooge, Donald, and Della to fight off a horde of eggheads. Wow, that's going on. Gyro and Manny are confronted by Pepper and Blotch, and it's revealed that Manny is a creature called the Headless Man-Horse of the Apocalypse. Blotch uses the Blessed Bagpipes to animate the statue of Scrooge that Manny has been using as a head since the pilot, but also petrify the organic horse's body. Now, this show's been known for throwing around references to other Disney Afternoon cartoons and other properties since the very start, and for the finale, they make a reference that I don't think anyone saw coming.
I live again!
This was legit surprising, since Gargoyles didn't really go for a lighthearted and goofy all that often, and had a much darker tone compared to the rest of Disney Afternoon cartoons. Hell, one episode was banned because a main character got shot in her own home. In another part of the base, Gizmo Duck, Launchpad, and Darkwing are attacked by Steelbeak, who's used the Intelliray created by Black Heron in the episode Double a Duck on himself. This increases his intelligence, since he somehow knows how to deactivate the Gizmo Duck armor, and tosses Fenton and Darkwing into a cube before being on Launchpad. Even when it seems that Launchpad might be a match for the rooster, Steelbeak reveals that Fowl had captured Scrooge's other enemies and had tinkered with the Intelliray to strip them of free will and turn them into his mindless thugs. Steelbeak also tipped off Duncan Hars that the kids were on the Sun Chaser before revealing himself, and the Sky Pirate attacks the plane after Nina lowers the barrier that was keeping them hidden. While scared at first, after a pep talk from Louie, Dewey uses the piloting training he got from his mother to flank and nudge his ship for one final standoff. Even though the plane technically crashes, the kids are alright, except for Boyd, who's just ahead, and needs little blows by for the rest of the episode, when the kids split up and search for the adults. When Nina and Vita come across Shannon Block, who's still draining mainly of his magic, Nina manages to break the part of his gauntlet that was housing the genie he was using as a battery, and Manny, now free again, fully transforms into a demonic horse. We never see what happens after this, but I guess we can assume the combination of him and Lena is enough to knock out their mutual enemy. Boyd and Gosling find Launchpad, who is losing pretty badly to the villains, and provide a distraction. Boyd can't hack into the system that's keeping Fenton and Darkwing jailed, so Fenton tells Boyd to try and hack the Gizmo Duck armor to reactivate it. Now, prior to Steelbeak attacking, Launchpad had been feeling that he doesn't deserve to stand along such heroes like Gizmo Duck and Darkwing Duck, and still feels that way even when fighting for his life. Fenton and Darkwing, however, tell Launchpad that they became heroes because he inspired them. With a newfound strength and the Gizmo Duck suit reactivating, Launchpad becomes a new version of Gizmo Duck and sends an intimidated Steelbeak running, dropping the Intelliray, which smashes on the ground. Huey is taken to Bradford, who reveals that his grandmother was Isabella Finch, the founder of the Junior Woodchuck Scout Group. Bradford says he's simply been archiving all the old treasures his grandmother discovered, and simply means the remaining pages of her old journal, which Huey's been discovering throughout the third season. Now, when I first heard this, I was sure it was a lie, and it sort of is. Bradford's grandmother was indeed the woman who founded the scout group that has always been part of the Disney Duck universe since the comics. But Bradford always hated every single minute of the adventures his grandmother took him on, viewing the experiences as terrifying chaos. And while I can understand and sympathize, I doubt Isabella was as bad as Jonas Venture Sr.
You were telling me how you're ungrateful for all the opportunities your father's given you, and you blame me for all your problems.
It's official. You suck.
While Huey is placated at first, he discovers that Danger, Gyro, and even Ludwig von Drake are all being held captive before being captured himself. There's also this line.
You were ancient in the 60s. How are you not dead?
Well, between being captured and that Bradford forcing me to carry out his evil will, I was getting so busy that I never got around to it.
This series has come up with some fantastical ways for characters to extend their lives, but this is just hilarious and sort of believable when you remember that the first arc of the original series had a villain that managed to live for 300 years through sheer willpower alone. Dewey and Louie managed to free their brother, but are then captured themselves, so that was kind of pointless. While Scrooge, Donald, and Della managed to take down the eggheads fairly well, they are then attacked by Jeeves, who is only stopped by Beakley, who had disguised herself as an egghead. Just when it seems that the tide might turn in the Duck's favor, Scrooge is taken out by May, and Heron takes out Beakley when she hesitates to attack May due to how much she resembles Webby. Still pretending to be June, Webby tries to uncover any secret file may have connected to her, but she only discovers a hint of their connection to her by accident. When she's discovered, Webby is given the task of interrogating Beakley, with Arbor Morana acting as a lie detector. Webby takes a chance to learn more about herself. It turns out Webby isn't Beakley's granddaughter at all, but a child Beakley discovered during her last raid on one of Fowl's bases. Not wanting the child to be used as a tool for evil, Beakley had escaped with her, went to Scrooge, and became the adopted grandmother of the girl she then dubbed Webby. Webby is understandably angry with her granny for being dishonest about who she was this whole time, and unfortunately, it's revealed that Bradford knew Webby had been impersonating June. Bradford makes a deal with Webby. If she helps him find the last missing mystery from his grandmother's journal, then he'll tell Webby and her sisters why they were created. At this point, anyone who's read the comics or watched The Legend of the Three Caballeros will have realized that if Webby's clones are named May and June, then that must mean her real name has always been April. April, May, and June are basically the girl counterparts to Huey, Dewey, and Louie, being Daisy's nieces, but they never really made an animated appearance outside a few cameos on House of Mouse and the aforementioned The Legend of the Three Caballeros. Webby is so desperate to learn why she exists that she agrees. And what do you think the final missing mystery is? The Papyrus of Binding, meaning she is a blood relative of Scrooge, having been cloned from one of his feathers, and why May and June were deemed failed experiments. Scrooge wakes up tied to a chair, as Bradford begins to talk about how all the adventures Scrooge and his family have gone on have, in his eyes, put the world in peril. Yet all I can wonder is, how could he possibly have gotten all those snapshots for stuff he couldn't possibly have known about? What? Was it a Dr. Giro type of thing? Where he had this drone following around the whole time? Because Bradford was such a bad scout, Scrooge is able to break his bonds and deliver a good hard strike to Bradford. But unfortunately, the Buzzard fights back with the Sawyer Swanson team and begins to transform. While Scrooge puts up a decent fight, Bradford overpowers him and reveals his ultimate plan. Using the Papyrus of Binding, Bradford's made a literally binding contract that Scrooge's family can only live peacefully if he gives up adventuring. The Buzzard also intends to dispose of anything that could be considered adventurous by throwing it into the Silica Vortex, which has been modified to erase matter thrown into it rather than transport it to a different dimension. Bradford then uses his partners / altered clones and Black Heron as a demonstration. It's funny. I was pretty sure that it would be Black Heron to betray Bradford and take control of Fowl for herself. When Scrooge tries to stall, Bradford threatens to drop Donald into the vortex, forcing Scrooge to sign the contract. And then Bradford just drops Donald anyway. This is a fake out though. Realizing they'd been created and were considered completely disposable to Bradford, as well as being heartbroken when they saw Black Heron erased, since they saw her as a mother, May and June freed everyone they had personally captured and led them to the top of the library just in time for Gyro to deactivate the vortex. Come on, did you seriously think the writers were gonna kill off Donald? Enraged, he's been, rather easily, thwarted. Bradford tries to attack Scrooge, only for Scrooge's family, blood-related and extended, to come to his rescue and try to find a loophole in the contract. What's the loophole the show comes up with? Family is the greatest adventure of all. Yeah, you know, I sort of have to agree with Tricky Fox when he reviewed this episode, that the contract should have been rendered null and void, and Bradford put Donald's life in danger, since the condition was, in exchange for Scrooge giving up adventuring, his family would be allowed to live in peace, and Bradford decided he wanted to kill Scrooge's nephew just to be petty. While the family is the greatest adventure of all loophole he's pokes fun at, it's apparently good enough for the contract, since it and Bradford's armor begin to disintegrate. Now powerless and facing Scrooge and his allies, Bradford makes the most pitiful escape attempt I've ever seen from a villain, before being cornered by Scrooge's other enemies, and is turned into a non-sentient vulture by Magica, before she and the other villains leave via her magic. With this adventure having come to an end, and Webby wordlessly letting Beasley know that she still considers her family, the Duck family head back to Duckburg on the Sun Chaser. It's implied that Donald and Daisy are going to adopt me in June, and Launchpad ends the show in the most Launchpad way possible.
Group hug!
Launchpad? Who's flying the plane?
On it to adventure!
Oh, all right. That was close, Launchpad. Whew, almost ruined the tender family moment.
When it was announced that the third season of Ducktales would be its last, my initial thought was as long as it wrapped up the Fowl storyline, I would be satisfied. And it didn't disappoint. Like I said in my Glomtales review, I've always enjoyed when villains get together to go up against the heroes. And I think it's one of the reasons I really couldn't enjoy the 9th season of MLP. I did like the idea of previous films joining together, but they only really showed up for the premiere, 2 episodes, and then the finale to show how they could really be a threat. Fowl, however, was a threat that lurked in the shadows from the very start of the show, and Season 3 showcased all of its members. Even if I didn't get everything I'd have wanted, I'd say this is one of the better series finales I've seen lately. One issue I've heard is that it seems Huey was robbed of an arc this season. Honestly, the only trip that I noticed to go through an arc was Dewey in Season 1, where he tried to discover what happened to his mother, and Dewey's arc only felt like 3 episodes to me, but I guess the writers did do a decent job of developing his character, especially in the Bombi episode and the life and crimes of Scrooge McDuck. Huey, however, while he may have had a few episodes focused on him, I feel Season 3 was really more Fowl's time to shine than his, and Webby kind of stole his thunder in this hour-long finale. Webby kinda had her own arc in Season 1 due to her developing friendship with Lena, but I never felt that it overshadowed Dewey's quest to find out what had happened to Della. When Bradford reveals to Huey that his grandmother is the woman who created the Junior Woodchucks, you think they would make him as much a focal character as Webby, but apparently the writers had other ideas. Webby's an alright character, and I was honestly more invested in her storyline in this finale than any episode focusing on Huey or Louie. Always a happy and positive character, Webby starts to have some serious concerns when she realizes she actually knows very little about herself. Since May and June were made from Webby, she comes to view them as sisters and they prove to be just as inquisitive in the premiere. I did assume a source of drama in the finale was that Webby's loyalties will be torn between her friends and family in May and June, but thankfully that was averted, walking in on them with the 2 treasures in their hands about to leave. Although others are free to see this as convenient writing. Considering the reveal that Webby is a clone of Scrooge and was a tool in the fight for the Pirates of Binding, yeah, I have some issues with that. Far be it from me to question cartoon science, but how did Fowl take a DNA sample from a male character and end up with a female clone? I personally feel it would make more sense if Heron had managed to hold on a feather from Della when she was a kid and use that as cloning material. Though I wonder, would that have made Webby sister of the boys or... I think I'm overthinking this. This is also another loophole with the papyrus, and that Scrooge said that only his rightful heir could find it. So why didn't Bradford or Heron think that would have meant Della or Donald, or even one of the boys? No, you're just gonna take one of Scrooge's feathers, clone a little girl from it, and hope that she'll somehow be able to find the papyrus years later? Okay. I'm not sure why the writers chose to make Webby Scrooge's child by technicality. I mean, I knew it was probably meant to be a twist reveal, and it sort of works in the moment, but once you sit down and start to think about it, you'll be able to poke a lot of holes in in this logic. Though with that said, I really don't think this changes anything about Webby, in-universe or the fandom. She's still the same energetic girl she's always been. She's still best friend of Ian and Violet, still friends with the boys, and still part of Scrooge's family. It just turns out to be literal now. Bradford is possibly the best villain DuckTales has ever had. Glumgold's a good comedic villain. Magica does a decent job of being funny and threatening, and we learn exactly what her relationship to Scrooge is and why she's one of his enemies, rather than the original cartoon, where she just kind of shows up and wants his #1 dime. I didn't really care that much for Linares, and saw that him being able to counter Scrooge's every attempt to thwart a possible invasion was really just convenient writing. Bradford, on the other hand, is someone I can actually believe would be able to beat Scrooge's every possible turn, having been a part of the old Duck's life before the series even started. As much as he objects to being a villain, being a manipulative person with the worst of intentions comes way too easily for Bradford. Me feeling that the only reason Della found out about the spear of Celine was because Bradford told her with the intention of hurting Scrooge. Bradford has zero empathy for anyone, killing off Black Heron by pushing him to the Saligo Vortex to prove he's not making any exceptions in destroying anything he deems chaotic. During the final fight, Bradford blames Dexter for turning him into a monster, clearly choosing to ignore that the sword of Swansontein changes the wielder into who they truly are on the inside. Personally, I think Bradford's final words to the other villains would have been better if he'd said, "We both hate Scrooge," since it had fitted the cowardly state he now found himself in, and probably had a chance to be in control of the situation. Too bad for him. Magica didn't appreciate being someone else's pawn. The only issue I really have here, one of the missing mysteries Fowl captured was a genie that can create an alternate reality, so why not wish everything that could be adventurous away? Instead, Van Blob just uses the genie as a battery in his new gauntlet. That's like being able to find all 7 Dragon Balls, but using your wish to melt some ice.
Hey, look, it's fine. But how about just throwing it out there? I give you the power to melt the ice.
But that's what I have you for.
Yes, I know, but I'm trying to.
Don't you go pawning this off on me.
I'm not, but if it happens again, then... You know, fine, whatever.
As for the other villains, we never really see what happens to them after they're beaten. If it's true that there's going to be a Darkwing Duck reboot, I'd personally like to see Taurus Bulba come back and become the new head of Fowl, with Steelbeak as his #2, though it's questionable if Steelbeak will ever rid his dumb muscle persona since Magic Glumgold and the Beagles were freed from their zombification after the Intelliray was broken. I'm also disappointed that we never got to see what Blot looks like under his mask, since he supposedly looks like a dog version of Walt Disney. The series did pretty much every possible character justice in my opinion. It made characters we'd written off from the original series, like Beakley and Webby, into characters we'd become attached to and want to follow, and reinvented fan favorite characters like Gizmo Duck and Darkwing Duck. It was also written away to integrate other Disney afternoon shows in this universe without it being forced. Disney could have made this reboot just a cash grab, without much thought, like they've been doing with the live action Disney remakes, and Marvel and Star Wars, but I feel this is proven that the people behind all this truly cared about what they were doing and tried to wrap up every plot thread as neatly as possible. This is Night Hat Ice saying, thanks for letting me share my thoughts. Please share yours with me.